What's up, guys? I'm back at it. F1 2021, 100% race. This one is in Portugal. And this is a track that I actually like pretty well. I think it's a fun track. And if I can go for a whole race without wrecking at this one specific spot where I always spin that I will show you, then generally it's a fine race. And it's just really about staying consistent and everything. So hopefully we can have a good one here. This is more my team gameplay. And right now, Starlix Motorsport, my team, we don't have the greatest car. We've got the fourth worst car on the grid, so we've certainly got a long way to go. We do, you may have heard me in past videos mention, we're stockpiling a lot of cash money. We are stockpiling quite a bit of resource points, so hopefully we can really build up for the rest of the season and get to a good spot. So right here, by the way, is where I always spin. It's just that I couldn't tell you why, but I always spin there. It's brutal, just brutal stuff. I didn't spin there on that lap, so that's good. And I was really focusing pretty hard on trying to not spin at that place during this race. So that was a real key for me, is just keep it on the track, stay clean, do okay. And what you're seeing here is the best qualifying lap that I ran, and you may be able to tell from the time that this was not run late in the session. I ran this pretty early, tried some other laps, and actually wasn't getting great times, and ended up just, I think one lap I abandoned because I was just not close, and then another lap I invalidated accidentally. So you can't win them all, but we do end up qualifying P13, which is a nice result. 3 spots in front of Carlos Sainz, a full 2/10 in front of him. Actually, it's more like 1/10 and some change. So we're happy with the P13 start, and I think there's actually someone that takes a grid penalty here, so I end up starting P12. So even better than we first thought after doing the qualifying. So that's certainly something to be happy about. I think the AI on this could maybe have been brought up a little more, and I will get into that later during the race, but there were a few instances here where maybe I was just surprised that certain cars couldn't get past me. So I will return to that commentary when I get to that point in the race. But you see there, bottom left, Portugal is the oldest country in Europe. Good to know. Thank you for that. I love those little stats, little interesting trivia questions. You see Sergio Perez, 36 points. Verstappen's got 31 points. Gasly's got 30 points. Jeff has 0 points. Pan over to the car here, and you can see my head in the cockpit there. And thus far, the season has been somewhat tough on us. So first race, we actually had a DNF, mechanical failure on the car at Bahrain. Second race, which I uploaded recently, I got lots of track limit penalties at Imola and finished P10, but ended up dropping to P13 with the track limit penalties. So unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. You see me here starting P12, which we will take. It looks like Perez maybe is the one who, yeah, I think Perez was the one who took some sort of engine grid penalty type thing, and I'm going to need to do that soon because I absolutely wasted one part of my engine. So so we're going to need to definitely take some grid penalties at some point, but this was the wrong race with me starting P12. And starts are, I think, pretty tough for me, I think especially in AI races. And I think maybe it's a little easier for me when I'm actually racing against other people, because I think that the other people are also trying to not run into each other, whereas the AI just sort of seem to do whatever it is that they're doing, which can sometimes work out and sometimes not. But we managed to keep it clean throughout this beginning here. And I'm down to P13 at this point, which is unfortunate, but that's just the way sometimes it goes. I'm behind Mick. I'm in front of Perez. And I just bump a little bit there into the side of Vettel, who is back in a Ferrari, interestingly. Check the vehicle condition here. Jeff says there's nothing wrong, so I'm fine with that. But I did get a little out of sorts there because I was playing around in my MFD. And end up losing a couple places here. So I'm down to P14. Perez got past me with no difficulty whatsoever. Closed the door a little bit there on Russell. And just go way super deep into that turn. And Russell and Sainz both got by me. So I'm down to P16 after lap 1. which is just really unfortunate. I really thought that had a decent start going there and just sort of threw it away. So that's unfortunate, but it happens sometimes, and I've got a lot of race to recover. I've got 65 laps left, and I will do my best to try to keep it on the track and try to make up this deficit that I put myself in. So you see me right behind Sainz here, and had a little look at it going down the inside, but figured it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. So fast forward a little bit here to the end of lap 4. Kimi Räikkönen is actually catching up with me very quickly, and frankly, I just didn't have the juice to fight him. He had the DRS there. There are other times in this race, you see me there get my first time penalty very early. 5 laps in, I've already gotten 3 track limits, which is unfortunate. You hate to see it. So fast forward a bit more. We're lap 12 here. I've got the 3 seconds. I am catching up to Räikkönen. I actually have a better car than the Alfa Romeo is at this point this season. They are the 3rd worst car. We are the 4th worst car. And there's a bit of a gap there. So it's not surprising to me that I was able to put the rush job on and just get past Räikkönen there. And you see me going down into turn 1, and I have made a stick, so we're up to P16. Fast forward a little bit, P11, we've had a couple guys pit. That's why you're seeing that. And by the way, we're expecting rain later in this race, so I'm trying to be smart about how I'm going to do this. I've been on softs for 24 laps, and they appear to be fine at this point in the race. Gasly gets by me there. But they appear to be fine at this point in the race, so I'm of the thinking that I can probably drive on them a little longer, and it's okay for the moment. But like I was saying, Gasly got by me, and then he got by Sainz as well, and we got Vettel behind us, and Vettel makes it look pretty easy. I don't know if that was maybe like he had just pitted and switched tires. I think that might be the case because Perez got by me there on the same straight as well, and I know both of them had passed me earlier in the race. So I think maybe they started on mediums and went to softs or something like that. You may be able to tell the sky's getting a little bit darker here. It's getting a little bit darker, and this is lap 29. We're about to the point where I kind of expected rain to hit, so I'm sort of expecting that to happen. And if you look very closely at the screen, you can see a couple raindrops have started to fall. So it is that time of the race. I'm hoping that this works out really well, where I can go soft to intermediate, and hopefully benefit here from the switch, because I was going to need to switch tires at some point. So it was key to try to be smart about doing that. I didn't want to go pit stop and then have to immediately go back in for intermediates. Unfortunately, we do get double stacked here with Sainz, which I didn't even think of until I go into the pits. And yeah, and they obviously double stacked us. I end up with a 3.2 second stop in the pits for roughly 28.5 seconds. Could be much worse. I come out P15, and I think I was one of the earlier guys pitting for tires, so hopefully I'm in a good spot here. Just moving on through the race a little bit. I think the key part for me in this race, and there's more to come, and you may be able to tell by the title, there's some interesting stuff still to happen in this race. But the way it stands now is I'm currently P13 on the intermediates, and DRS is not happening. So DRS is not allowed at the moment. So I am in a position where I may be able to defend against people, and that's what I've been trying to do throughout the race. So you see a lot of other people behind me pitted, and I end up P3 at this point, and I think the other cars have pitted for full wets, if I'm not mistaken. But frankly, this is a little weird. I don't really remember exactly how I got to P3. I think maybe a lot of other people, like I said, pitted for full wets, and I was just sort of fortunate enough to be in front of them. But the really interesting thing for me here is that you're watching this lap. This is my end lap, right? I'm about to pit. I'm not going that fast. I'm Schumacher behind me is gaining time on me. I'm losing time to Hamilton in front of me. Frankly, I don't really understand. I don't point to this lap as some super rapid lap that was gonna protect against any undercutting or anything like that. So just keep that in your mind for the moment, okay? You see Verstappen in the pits putting on full wets, and we haven't had a safety car here, so he's building up quite a lead at the front of the pack, and Hamilton is right up there with him, of course, and I'm apparently right there with them at P3. So the important thing here is get on the full wets and get back out here because it is getting nasty out on track. It is super wet. So put the full wets on, 2.8 second stop. We love it. And I come out of the pits at P5 and then just give it a second here, and Stroll easily gets by me, so he's in P5 and I'm in P6. And frankly, I had no idea how this happened. The fact that I'm in P6 is insane to me, and the only thing I can think of is that the other cars, so you know how I pitted for intermediates right when it was getting wet? The only thing that I can think of is that all those other cars pitted onto like a softer and medium compound at the same time I pitted for intermediates, and then they had to go in a few laps later and put on their intermediates, and that's how I was in P3. And then I was able to just defend once I came out in P6. I mean, you saw Valtteri behind me, just couldn't get past me. I was getting a lot of battery recharge on this track, especially in the rain, and I would just turn on the battery on the way down the one DRS straight, the main DRS straight, and nobody could catch me. And the Mercedes is a better car, and he couldn't catch me. And I think that was very important for me to be able to try to retain that lead a little bit. But this is a key part of the race, okay? So you may have seen that a strategy suggestion came up and said that I should pit for intermediates. And my thinking was like, yeah, the track is drying up. I think all the AI are going to pit for their intermediates, and I will basically get a jump on them by going earlier than everyone else. Well, okay, it turns out that's not exactly what happened. It turns out you didn't actually need to pit for intermediates. You could, but those guys on the full wets just didn't pit. So I come out of the pits on P16 again. I went from P6 to P16, putting those in that new set of intermediates on. Fast forward to lap 62, nobody's pitting. Fast forward again, we go to the end of lap 63, nobody's pitting. And at this point, I'm like, oh, my goodness, I've made a terrible, terrible mistake. They're not going to pit. They're not going to go on to intermediates. They're going to stay on their full wets. And it doesn't matter if I'm faster than them, which I kind of am faster than them. They've got so much time on me. And Max Verstappen wins the race, and nobody pits. And I just end P16, which was just a huge, massive strategy blunder. I just completely messed that up. And in retrospect, looking back at it and watching it back, it's so obvious. I should have just run the extra 4 or 5 laps on the full wets. It essentially would have cost me nothing. It would have been so easy. Worst case, I get passed by a car or two because I'm on the wrong tire. But instead, I pitted. I finished a lap down. Verstappen apparently lapped me while I was in my last pit stop. And I just threw away 10 spots. I threw away my first points result of the season because I thought that I was making a daring strategy call. And it was kind of daring because apparently it didn't work out at all. But I have hopefully learned a little bit from that, and hopefully won't make that same mistake again, because it was painful to throw away points like that. But I just hope that we get more opportunities later in the season to score some points and hopefully get some podiums and wins.